Ever caught yourself wondering what someone is really thinking? What's really behind that polite smile? The real reason your friend went quiet mid conversation? What your boss is actually thinking while nodding along in a meeting? What if you never had to wonder again? What if every secret, every silent judgment, every unspoken thought became yours to hear, whether you wanted to or not? This is Brinner, and here's what would happen if you could read everyone's mind. At first, this power's fun, almost too fun to take seriously. Your friend tells you the dinner you cooked was great, but underneath it, you hear the truth. Too much salt. They're already planning to order takeout later. Your boss says, great work in the meeting, but what's actually running through his head is next quarter's budget cuts and whether he'll make his lunch reservation on time. Every conversation now comes with subtitles, subtitles only you can see. And that's the harmless version. The moment you start using this power on purpose, everything changes. Go on a first date. You don't have to guess if it's going well. Second by second, whether they're genuinely interested or quietly counting down the minutes until they can leave. Sit down for a family dinner. You can hear exactly what your relatives think about the career choices you've made, whether or not they'd ever say it out loud. Walk into a used car lot. You know instantly the lowest price the salesman will actually accept. Every negotiation you'll ever have again? A foregone conclusion. School and work stop being much of a challenge either. Sit down for a final exam and you can pull the correct answer straight out of your professor's head before the test papers have even finished being handed out. Walk into a job interview. You already know what the hiring manager thinks of your resume, what salary they're actually willing to offer, whether the position was filled internally weeks ago. Sit at a poker table and bluffing quietly dies as a concept. Coach a sports team and you read the opposing coach's next play before it's even called. Courtrooms, boardrooms, diplomatic summits, anywhere two people are trying to get something from each other while hiding their real intentions, that entire dynamic collapses overnight. But before we get to how far this actually spirals, let's answer the question you're probably already asking. How would something like this even work? Your thoughts aren't magic. They're electrical signals, firing across a network of roughly 86 billion neurons. That activity produces a measurable electromagnetic signature. Scientists can already detect fragments of it. EEG sensors on the scalp pick up broad patterns of brain activity. fMRI scans track blood flow to see which regions light up during a thought. In recent years, researchers have trained AI models to take a person's brain scans and reconstruct rough versions of the words they were hearing or the images they were imagining. From that activity alone, it's still clumsy, still slow, but it proves the basic premise. A thought is information, and information in theory can be decoded. None of this is entirely new territory either. Back in the 1930s, a researcher at Duke University spent years running card guessing experiments, trying to find statistical proof that some people could sense information without using their five senses. Decades later, during the Cold War, both the United States and the Soviet Union poured real money into classified programs, exploring whether trained operatives could remotely view hidden locations using nothing but focused thought. Every one of those programs eventually stalled out. But the fact that governments spent decades chasing this exact power, that tells you something about how badly people have always wanted it. Here's the thing though. Even if the science were perfect, even if you could hear every thought clearly and instantly, that's exactly when the real problems would start. The average human brain produces somewhere around 6,000 distinct thoughts every single day. Now multiply that by every person within earshot. Walking down a crowded street wouldn't feel like having a superpower. It would feel like 1,000 radio stations blasting at once. With no dial to turn any of them down, stand in a packed concert crowd, and instead of losing yourself in the music, you'd be drowning. 10,000 overlapping trains of thought about work emails, sore feet, and who's texting who. Falling asleep next to another person wouldn't just mean sharing a bed, it would mean falling asleep inside their head, too. Replaying every anxious, half formed thought looping through their mind as they drift off. And the noise is only half the problem. It's what's actually inside it, not the polished, polite version people choose to say out loud, the raw version underneath, the passing insecurity, the petty comparison, the flash of jealousy toward a friend's success, the coworker smiling at you while quietly counting down the minutes until you leave the room. Even the people who love you most think things they'd never say out loud, not out of malice, because a little privacy, even inside our own heads, is part of what lets people stay close to each other at all. And that's just what happens to your relationship. Zoom out any further, and this stops being a personal problem. It becomes everyone's problem all at once. No secret survives contact with a true mind reader. Not a government's, not a corporation's, not a spouse's. Every closed door negotiation collapses. Nobody can bluff or hide leverage anymore. Diplomacy, which depends on saying one thing publicly while thinking another privately, stops functioning entirely. Entire industries built around persuasion, sales, marketing, politics become obsolete overnight. The legal system might struggle the most. Courts have spent centuries building rules around what can and can't be used as evidence, including your own right not to testify against yourself. But what happens to that right the moment your thoughts stop being private property? Privacy as a concept would simply stop existing. Not because anyone voted to remove it, because the ability to keep a thought to yourself would be gone. And once privacy disappears, trust changes meaning too. Trust has only ever mattered when there was a choice not to know something about someone. Take that choice away, and what's left isn't trust, it's just certainty. So far, every version of this story has assumed only you have this power. But what happens the moment that stops being true? What if this ability ran both ways? If everyone could read everyone else's mind all at once, all the time, at that point, this stops looking like a superpower given to one person. It starts looking like a hive mind, a single shared layer of consciousness spread across billions of brains. Not unlike the way an ant colony functions as one coordinated organism, even though no single ant understands the whole plan. Deception would become physically impossible on a species-wide scale. Wars fought over hidden intentions might become obsolete overnight, simply because there'd be nothing left to hide. But so would every harmless version of deception too. Surprise parties, magic tricks, the twist ending of a movie you haven't watched yet. If nobody can hide a thought, nobody can hide a secret worth celebrating either. And so would the version of you that exists only inside your own head. The private inner voice, the unfinished thought, the version of yourself you're still figuring out before you're ready to share it with anyone else. So would total access to every mind on earth make you the most powerful person alive, or ultimately the loneliest? Maybe some thoughts were never meant to be heard out loud. Maybe that small, quiet gap between what we think and what we actually choose to say is exactly where most of our humanity has been hiding all along. But that's a story for another episode of Brinner.